They said she was being dramatic. They said it was just temporary. But they never thought I'd come knocking. My name is Franklin Dean. I'm 56 years old, born and raised in Alabama. Spent 20 years in the Army, another 15 running my own contracting company. I've worked in the dust, the heat, the cold. I've been shot at more times than I care to remember. Nothing scares me much these days. But silence? Silence from my daughter? That scared me. Cora used to call every week. Sometimes just to talk about the weather, sometimes to vent about her husband, Wyatt. But 3 weeks ago, the calls stopped. No warning, no explanation. Just short, cold texts once every few days. Busy this week, Dad. All good here. Just working on some things. That wasn't my daughter. My daughter never filtered her words. So I got in my truck, filled the tank, and drove 3 hours south to a place called Linden Vale. That's where she lives now, or used to, with her husband's family. The Halworths. Old money. Big house. Fake smiles. I'd been there once before. Wedding weekend. I didn't like them then. Too polished. Too quiet. The kind of people who think kindness is something you wear, not something you do. I pulled up to their gated estate just after noon. Sun was blazing. My shirt stuck to my back the second I stepped out of the truck. Their driveway was lined with stone lions and trimmed hedges. Everything about the place screamed control. The front door opened before I could knock. Sandrine Halworth. Wyatt's mother. Pale as porcelain. White dress, hairpin meat. She looked like she'd never broken a sweat in her life. Mr. Dean, she said. What an unexpected visit. I'm here to see my daughter. She smiled. Tight. Practiced. Cora's out back. She's working on a personal project. I'll find her. She's very independent, Sandrine added, not moving from the doorway. We've always respected her space. I didn't respond. I walked past her. The air conditioning inside hit like a wall. Cold and artificial. The kind of cold that says, we have nothing to feel. Their home looked like a magazine cover. Marble floors. Crystal vases. Not a single thing out of place. Except one thing. There were no photos of Cora. No wedding pictures. No snapshots. Only Wyatt. And the Halworths. I moved through the kitchen and out onto the back patio. The backyard looked like a resort. Pool shimmering under the sun. Shaded lounge chairs arranged perfectly. Outdoor bar fully stocked. Everything was designed for comfort. But then I saw the shed. Far corner of the yard. No trees. No cover. No breeze. A box. A wooden oven sitting in full sun. I crossed the lawn. Grass crunching under my boots. The heat rising off the ground made the air ripple. As I got closer, I felt something turn in my gut. No windows facing the house. One small fan in the wall. The kind you buy at a gas station for $10. I knocked. Her voice came through the door. Soft. Cracked. Dad. When she opened it, my heart dropped. Cora was standing in soaked clothes, her face red, her hair clinging to her neck. She looked tired. Hollow. There was a cot in the corner, a bin of clothes, and that little fan doing a whole lot of nothing. What the hell is this? She looked down. It's temporary. Wyatt's away. His family has a rule. No non-blood relatives in the main house when he's gone. You're his wife. She looked away. How long have you been living out here? Since he left. 8 weeks. I stepped inside and nearly turned right back around. It felt like stepping into a sauna with no exit. A thermometer nailed to the wall read 104 degrees. Jesus Christ. They let me use the kitchen early in the morning, she whispered. Before they wake up. I'm out by 7. I stared at her. You're not staying here another night. I can't just leave. Why not? She hesitated. Sandrine has connections. Wyatt's business depends on their reputation. If I make a scene, they put you in a shed like a stray dog, Cora. I thought I could handle it. I looked around the space again. This wasn't discomfort. This was calculated. Designed to humiliate. To break. I turned back to her. Pack your things. Dad, pack. Your things. She didn't move. Just stood there, trembling. So I grabbed the plastic bin myself and dumped it on the cot. Clothes spilled out. Wrinkled. Damp. A toothbrush. A comb. You don't understand, she started. No, I do. I understand exactly. They don't see you as family. They see you as a problem. She stared at the floor. It was supposed to be temporary. No, honey, this was a test. And you've suffered long enough. She slowly picked up her bag. We walked back to the house, past the patio, past the pool. I could feel the heat radiating off my skin. Cora's breathing was shallow. Her steps were small. Sandrine was waiting in the kitchen, arms crossed, her lips in a tight line. You're making a mistake, she said. No, I told her. You did. 8 weeks ago. Cora looked at her, not with fear this time, with something closer to disgust. I opened the front door. Let's go. Sandrine didn't say another word. We stepped outside. The sun was still high, the heat still brutal. But my daughter? She was finally walking in the right direction. I drove with the windows down. Not because I liked the heat, but because Cora needed air that didn't feel like prison. Her hands were clenched in her lap. She hadn't said a word since we left the Haworth estate. My old truck rattled a bit, like it was struggling to carry the weight of what we were bringing with us. When we pulled into my driveway back in Montgomery Hills, she looked at my place like it was some ancient memory. A modest one-story with chipped paint and a roof I keep patching myself. But it was home, and I never locked the people I love out of it. Inside, the air conditioner hummed like a lullaby. Showers in the back, I told her. Towels are clean. Water's hot. Take your time. She nodded, not trusting her voice. 20 minutes later, she came out with wet hair, clean clothes, and a face that looked 10 pounds lighter. I hadn't seen her like that in over a year. We sat at the kitchen table. Same table where she'd done homework. Same spot where we ate pancakes after her mom passed. She looked around like the memories were sneaking up on her. I'm sorry, she said finally. For what? For not calling. For letting it get that far. You have nothing to be sorry for. She wiped her eyes. I thought I could handle it. That if I just kept my head down, they'd respect me. I thought maybe I was the problem. Maybe I wasn't good enough. I gripped my coffee mug. Hard. My knuckles turned white. You were never the problem. She nodded fairly. It started before the wedding. Sandrine would make little comments about how I dressed, how I talked, said Wyatt's ex was from a better family, that she knew how to carry herself. You tell Wyatt? He said I was imagining things. Of course he did. She made it sound like advice, she went on. Never outright insults. Just suggestions. Hints. Smiles that didn't reach her eyes. And when did it get worse? After we moved in. We were supposed to be there for 6 months. Save money. Get our own place. But Wyatt's business wasn't doing well. He's an engineer, but his firm missed payroll 3 times in 1 year. His parents offered to help. Said we could stay longer. Under conditions. $1,800 a month. For food and household contributions. And even then, they treated me like a guest. I did the math in my head. That was nearly her whole paycheck. The day after Wyatt left for Thailand, she said, Sandrine called a family meeting. She said it was tradition. That when the head of household is away, non-blood members sleep in the guest quarters. That's not a guest house, Cora. That's a shack. She called it rustic. Said it would help me build character. I leaned back in my chair and looked at the ceiling. I'd seen things overseas. Commanders who broke their own men just to prove they could. This smelled the same. Why didn't you leave sooner? I didn't have anywhere to go. I couldn't talk to Wyatt without her listening. And I thought, maybe if I just stuck it out, she'd see I was loyal. That I loved him enough to be part of their family. I looked at her. Really looked. Her eyes were tired. But behind the fatigue, I saw something else. A spark. Something she didn't even know was still there. Cora, I said, calm but firm, they didn't want family. They wanted control. And now they're going to learn what happens when they mess with the wrong people. She looked at me. What do you mean? I mean we start gathering facts. Names. Dates. Patterns. We build the story they don't want anyone to hear. She swallowed. You think people will care? Not everyone. But enough. That night, I made 2 calls. One to Roy, the other to Nancy Walters. Roy served with me in Fallujah. These days he works as a private investigator. He's got a gut for lies and a gift for turning secrets into weapons. Nancy's a lawyer, tough as nails. Works for a nonprofit that deals with domestic financial abuse cases. She doesn't back down. Ever. Roy picked up on the first ring. What's going on, Frank? I need dirt. On the Howarths. Fast. How deep do you want me to dig? All the way to bedrock. He paused. You're not doing this for revenge. I'm doing this for Cora. And for anyone else who came before her. All right, he said. You'll have something in 48 hours. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat on the porch, the stars overhead, the old swing creaking in the breeze. My hands clenched tight around a glass of water I didn't even sip. You can't punch wealth. You can't scare it like a man in a bar fight. But you can starve it. Strip it down. Piece by piece. The Howarths were about to learn that reputation is more fragile than gold. And that a quiet man with a memory and a cause is the most dangerous kind of enemy. Because I wasn't going to shout. I wasn't going to fight. I was going to expose. Roy called me just after 6 a.m. He knew I'd be up. I've got something, he said. More than something. I didn't even sit down. Just stood in the kitchen, coffee in one hand, phone in the other, staring out at the backyard. You're not going to like it, he warned. Try me. There was a woman. Name was Elise Dunn. Married Wyatt's cousin back in 2016. She lived at the estate for 7 months. And? Same story, Frank. Subtle control. Isolation. She left after a breakdown. Filed a report at a clinic, but never pressed charges. She disappeared after the divorce. I gritted my teeth. She's still in state? Last known address was 2 towns over. Want me to find her? Yes. And get her statement if she's willing. I hung up and took a long breath. 1 story is a tragedy. 2 is a pattern. Later that morning, I called Nancy. She listened to everything, silent the whole way through. When I finished, she asked one question. Does your daughter have medical documentation? She went to urgent care 2 weeks ago. Dehydration. Heat exhaustion. They told her she was lucky. Good. That's our foundation. You think we can take this legal? Eventually, she said. But the better strategy? Social pressure first. Hit their standing. Undermine their name. They're high society types. That's their weakness. Exactly what I needed to hear. I spent the rest of the morning at the local courthouse, pulling property records and permit filings. The Halworth estate sat on protected historic land. That meant there were rules. Tight ones. Especially around occupancy structures and zoning. The shed wasn't registered. No certificate of use. No ventilation inspection. Technically, it wasn't even legal to house a dog in there overnight. I made copies of everything. That night, I sat down with Cora. She was curled up on the couch, wearing an old t-shirt of mine and socks that didn't match. She looked more like the girl I'd raised. I need your statement, I said gently. She straightened. I've already started writing it, she said, pulling out a notebook. I've got dates, names, everything she said, everything she did. I felt something tight in my chesties a little. You're strong, you know that? I told her. I wasn't, she said. But now I am. The next day, I drove back to Lindenvale. Not to the estate. Not yet. I started with their neighbors. Old folks. Longtime residents. The ones who mow their own lawns and remember everyone's business, even if they pretend not to. First was Gloria Pruitt, 78. 2 poodles. Sharp as ever. I always thought that girl looked too thin, she said after I explained who I was. Saw her one day early morning. Slipped and hit the ground trying to carry a laundry basket. No one came to help her. You'd be willing to write a statement? Absolutely. I knew something wasn't right. Next was Dennis Sharp, retired contractor. He leaned on his cane, eyes narrowed. They hired me to fix their sunroom once. Paid late. Acted like I was some kind of stray dog sniffing around their china. You hear anything about how they treated family? Only that it wasn't family unless it was blood. The more I asked, the more I heard the same things. Phrases like, odd rules, too controlling, poor girl, always alone. The Howarths weren't just cold. They were calculated. I compiled everything. By Friday, I had Cora's medical records, signed neighbor statements, zoning violations, witnesses who saw her isolated and distressed, a formal statement from Roy's contact, Elise Dunn, and I wasn't done yet. I reached out to the Linden Vale Heritage Trust. See, the Howarths were up for a $75,000 preservation grant. That's how rich people stay rich. Government money dressed up in civic pride. But to get that grant, they had to prove their home was in compliance, that they upheld exceptional domestic standards. Funny phrase that. I made a phone call to the Trust's review board, booked a time to appear at their next hearing, as a concerned citizen. And I brought everything, but I didn't submit it yet. First, I mailed an envelope. No return address. Just a white envelope with documents and photos, delivered straight to Sandrine's personal mailbox. I wanted her to feel it coming, not see it, feel it. The next day, Cora got a text from Wyatt. Hey, my mom's been asking questions. Everything okay? She didn't answer. Not yet. We weren't ready. This wasn't a sprint. It was a siege. Sunday morning. Quiet. The kind of quiet you don't trust. Cora sat at the kitchen table, coffee in her hands, scrolling through her phone. She blocked me, she said. Sandrine. On everything. I nodded. Means she's scared. What about Wyatt? Still radio silence. She turned the screen toward me. I texted him last night. Just said I'm safe. He left it on read. Coward. Either he knew and he was part of it, or he knew and looked away. Both were unforgivable. I think I want to speak, Cora said suddenly. To the board. She nodded. If I don't tell my story, they'll twist it. They'll make me the problem. I studied her face. She was pale, but there was steel in her voice. The kind that didn't bend anymore. You'll get your chance. Monday evening, I got the call from the Heritage Trust secretary. You'll be given 5 minutes for public comment, she said. 5's all I need. The hearing was set for Thursday. That gave us 3 days. 3 days to finish what I'd started. Roy sent over a background file on Silas Hellworth. More like a resume with shadows. Legal but slimy. Offshore accounts. Quiet settlements. One old business partner who'd been bought outright before filing a lawsuit. But none of it was enough to take him down. Not yet. The key wasn't Silas. It was Sandrine. She ran the social life. Chaired the gala committees. Was a guest judge at charity events. Had her claws in every circle of Linden Vale's high society. So I made a list. Linden Vale Women's League City Preservation Panel, First Baptist Social Committee, Glenhaven School Board, all places where Sandrine's name carried weight. And I mailed them copies of the envelope. Photos. Statements. One-line summaries. No threats. No commentary. Just facts. It didn't take long. By Tuesday evening, Cora's phone lit up again. Someone from the Women's League messaged me, she said. Said they had no idea. That they're shocked. She asked if I'd be willing to speak to the board. I smiled. They were isolating her now. The same way she'd isolated Cora. I went out to the porch, lit a cigarette I didn't plan on smoking, and just stood there, watching the sky turn dark. Reputation is a house of glass. Most people protect it. Me? I throw rocks. Thursday came fast. The hearing room at the Linden Vale Courthouse wasn't much. Just a few rows of chairs and a long wooden table with 7 committee members and matching name tags. The Hellworths sat front and center. Sandrine looked tired. No pearls this time. Just a tight smile and eyes that couldn't hide the storm behind them. Silas was worse. Nervous. Jittery. He kept adjusting his watch like time owed him something. The committee chair opened with a cheerful voice. Let's begin with the Hellworth Estate application for the state grant of $75,000. We'll hear from the applicants first, followed by any public comments. Sandrine stood, smooth and composed, like nothing had happened. We are proud stewards of Linden Vale's legacy, she said. Our estate has been maintained to the highest standard. This grant would allow us to further restore the grounds, add historical value, and open our carriage house as a guest retreat for dignitaries. Dignitaries. She actually said that. She talked for 4 minutes and 30 seconds. At the 4:30 mark, the chair cut her off politely. Thank you, Mrs. Helworth. Now we have a registered speaker, Mr. Franklin Dean. I stood, no paper in my hand, no theatrics, just the truth. My daughter was married into this family, lived on their estate. For the last 3 months, while her husband was overseas, she was made to sleep in an uninsulated shed behind the main house. Murmurs spread like wildfire. In July, temperatures reached 104 degrees. There was no AC, no proper ventilation, just a broken fan and a locked door between her and the rest of the home. I turned to face the Helworths. She paid them $1,800 a month for that kindness. Gasps. I pulled out one paper. Just one. Here's her ER report. Heat exhaustion, dehydration, mental stress. And here, I pointed to a zoning map as the part of the property where the so-called guest quarters are. No occupancy permit. No inspection. Silas stood. This is defamation. The chair raised a hand. Mr. Helworth, you'll have your turn. Sandrine looked frozen. The Helworths claim to uphold heritage, I said. But I ask you, what kind of legacy is this? Public money should not go to those who mistreat their own. I sat down. The silence that followed was the heaviest sound I'd ever heard. When the chair finally spoke, his voice was slow and deliberate. The committee will deliberate on this matter and notify all parties within 10 business days. He paused, then added, given the seriousness of the allegations, we will be conducting an independent review. Sandrine tried to stand and speak, but no one was listening anymore. Not even her husband. We walked out, Cora and I, heads high. And I knew, without a doubt, the Helworths had just started to fall. By Monday morning, the retaliation had started. Cora's inbox was full. Emails from Wyatt's extended family. Messages from strangers. Even old friends. Some supportive. Most not. Why would you lie about your own in-laws? Sounds like you're just bitter. Sandrine's done more for this town than you ever will. That last one hit her hard. She sat at the dining table, phone in hand, eyes glassy. I took it from her gently and set it down. You don't have to read that garbage. She shook her head. I knew it would happen. I just didn't think it would be this loud. Noise is what people make when their illusions shatter. That night, she couldn't sleep. I heard her moving around at 3 a.m. The kitchen light clicked on, then off. Then on again. I got up and found her standing by the sink, drinking water from a chipped glass like it might fix everything. She's winning, Cora said. She's turning the town against me. No, she's revealing herself. But they don't see that. They will. I took the glass from her hand and set it down. She leaned into me like she used to when she was 10 and the world felt too big. You did the hard part already, I told her. Now let me do mine. That morning I called Lane. Deputy Lane Cotterman had a tired voice and the posture of someone who'd worked too long in a town that didn't change. You want me to open an investigation? He asked. I want you to look into the money. The Helworths' money? They run a charity fund. The Linden Vale Restoration Trust. Yeah, he said slowly. It's one of the biggest in the county. I want to know where that money goes. He sighed. That's a big request, Frank. I know. That's why I'm not filing a complaint. I'm just asking a question. Quietly. There was a pause. Then he said, I'll see what I can do. I hung up and turned to my next move. Public pressure. I booked an appointment with the city zoning department. It took less than 15 minutes for the inspector to confirm everything I already knew. The Helworths never registered that structure for occupancy, he said. And if someone was living in it, even temporarily, that's a big problem. Big enough to shut them down? Big enough to fine them? Possibly revoke their historic exemption. Perfect. I filed an anonymous report. 2 days later, the inspector showed up at their gates with a clipboard and a badge. Cora and I watched the footage on her phone that evening. Someone had filmed it from across the street and sent it to her. Sandrine opened the door. Her expression said everything. Shock, panic, rage. The inspector pointed at the shed. She tried to smile, tried to charm. It didn't work. He was writing things down the whole time. Cora laughed. A real laugh. Not bitter or hollow. And I felt it, the shift. The momentum was ours now. But then the call came. Wyatt. She stared at the screen for a long time before answering. Hello? His voice was cautious. Cora, what the hell's going on? I could ask you the same thing. I'm hearing rumors, mom's in tears, dad's talking about lawsuits. 3 months, she said, cutting him off. 3 months in that shed. You never asked why I sounded tired, why I lost weight, why I started talking like I was walking on glass. There was silence on the other end. I trusted you, she whispered. And you trusted them. He finally spoke. I didn't know. I swear, Cora, I thought no, she snapped. You didn't think. That's the problem. Then she ended the call. No more crying. No more apologizing. She just sat there, still and calm. I'm done with that family, she said. I didn't say anything. She didn't need comfort anymore. She needed room to rise. Sandrine Halworth blinked first. Wednesday morning, she stood on her front lawn, flanked by 2 garden flags and a podium someone must have dragged out of City Hall storage. She wore a navy suit and her signature pearls, face painted with just enough tension to look wounded, not weak. It was a performance. 2 local reporters showed up. Maybe 3. All handpicked. The kinds who still called her Mrs. Halworth out of habit or fear. I watched it on a local live stream from my laptop, the audio choppy, the video slightly delayed. Our family has given generously to Linden Vale for decades, she said. And yet today, we find ourselves the target of a coordinated, malicious attack. Lies, distortions, manipulations, all designed to destroy our name. Cora sat beside me on the couch, arms crossed, jaw clenched. There was never abuse, Sandrine continued. There was a period of adjustment. My daughter-in-law was offered accommodations while her husband was overseas. Temporary housing. We regret if she found it uncomfortable. Uncomfortable. She said it like Cora had been put in a hotel room that forgot the extra towels. Furthermore, Sandrine said, her voice rising slightly, we believe Mr. Franklin Dean, my daughter-in-law's father, is using this situation to enact personal revenge. His conduct has been erratic, invasive, and, frankly, obsessive. We are formally requesting an investigation into his behavior. There it was. The pivot. The projection. Cora looked at me, panic in her eyes. She's trying to bury you now. I didn't move. Just stared at the screen, watching Sandrine take a carefully rehearsed breath. There was a reason she had run half the boards in this town for 20 years. She knew how to play the part. This isn't a family matter, she said. This is a smear campaign, and we will not be silenced. She stepped back from the podium. The video cut out. Just like that, her opening salvo was done. 10 minutes later, I got the envelope. Hand-delivered by courier. A formal letter from the city's municipal review board. It read like a piece of fiction. Allegations of harassment. Accusations of slander. An official complaint against me for creating a hostile environment for a respected civic family. I folded the letter neatly and slid it into the drawer beside the kitchen sink. She had made her move. Good, because now I could make mine. I called Lane. She's coming after you hard, he said without greeting. Let her. You got what I asked for. The files are on your way. And Frank, there's more. He didn't elaborate. Just told me to check my inbox and hung up. Inside the email were scanned documents from the city zoning office, dated 2 months before Cora ever stepped foot in that shed. One in particular stood out, a request from Sandrine Halworth to reclassify a secondary structure on her property as its seasonal utility enclosure. That's government speak for a tool shed, not a guest house, not livable, certainly not fit for prolonged human habitation. And she knew it. Because the documents showed something else, too, an estimate from a local HVAC company, Trey's Place, recommending upgrades to make the space safe for occupancy. She'd declined it. With that, I had what I needed. Friday, I called a press conference of my own. No podium, no flags, just me, a folding table, and a manila folder full of truth. I stood in the parking lot across from the community center. Didn't matter that the sun was too hot or that only 5 reporters came. What mattered was what I had to say. I handed each one a packet, photos of the shed, copies of Cora's medical report, signed affidavits from neighbors, the HVAC inspection notes, and the zoning request. And then I spoke. My name is Franklin Dean. My daughter, Cora, was subjected to emotional abuse, isolation, and unsafe living conditions by the Hallworth family for over 3 months. I paused. Let that settle. This was not an accident, not a misunderstanding. It was designed, intentionally. And when I began to expose it, they called it a vendetta. I held up the letter Sandrine sent to the city. This is what bullies do when they get caught. They cry victim. I opened the folder. Here's what really happened. I read the zoning violation aloud, then the HVAC assessment, then the dates. How the shed was never legal for living, how they were told, how they chose to ignore it. This is not about family politics. This is about cruelty hidden behind money. And when one of the reporters asked, "What do you want to see happen now?" I said, "I want people like Sandrine Hallworth to learn they don't get to rewrite reality." Not this time. That night, the local news ran both press events back to back. Sandrine's was rehearsed. Mine was raw. And people felt the difference. The online comments flipped. If even half of what that man said is true, the Hallworths are monsters. Why didn't she mention the shed? You can't fake medical records. Lame called me at 9:30. City Council just suspended the Hallworths' preservation grant application. And the DA is asking questions. They're going to open a formal inquiry. I poured a glass of bourbon and stepped out onto the porch. It wasn't over, but we'd turned the tide. Sandrine had thrown the first punch in public. I hit back with proof. And now, people were listening. The Hallworth house had gone quiet. For a week, the curtain stayed drawn. No social events. No Sunday brunches. No charity appearances. Their usual photo ops, carefully staged smiles at hospital fundraisers, had vanished. The silence was its own kind of admission. But silence wouldn't be enough. Not for what they did to Cora. On Monday, the City Ethics Board opened a public investigation. Lane sent me the official notice, underlining a sentence that made me laugh out loud. Subject, Sandrine Hallworth. Alleged violation of public trust and misuse of charitable funds. Misuse of charitable funds. Turned out, while Sandrine had been locking my daughter in a tool shed, she was also redirecting donor money from a women's shelter she managed, money meant for transitional housing. Poetic in a disgusting kind of way. Tuesday, Channel 9 ran a follow-up piece. New allegations against prominent civic family, the headline read. It aired footage of the shed again, this time with commentary from a former shelter employee who said Sandrine dismissed half the applications she received from domestic abuse survivors. The reason? They didn't look the part. When asked what that meant, the woman simply said they weren't rich enough or white enough. Cora cried when she saw that. I didn't say anything. Some moments call for quiet. By Thursday, things had shifted. A notice arrived at our house, a summons. Sandrine was suing me. Defamation, emotional distress, damages. She was asking for $500,000. I read the papers 3 times, then set them down and smiled. Cora sat across the table, watching me carefully. "You're not worried?" she asked. "Oh, I'm thrilled," I said. She blinked. "This gives me discovery rights. I get to ask questions. Demand documents." Put her under oath. She just handed me the keys to her closet of skeletons. And I'm going to open every single one. That weekend, I drove out to Trey Hudson's shop. He was already waiting, flipping through a thick binder of invoices. "She signed this one," he said, tapping a service report. "Denied my recommendation. Refused upgrades. Wrote unnecessary expense in the margin. I saved the original. How do you feel about testifying?" He looked up. "After what she did to your daughter?" "I'd be honored." Then came Donna Briggs. I visited her again, this time with a tape recorder. She spoke clearly, calmly. Her hands didn't shake like last time. I saw what I saw. I knew something was wrong. I just didn't know how bad. I let the recorder run as she described Cora collapsing in the yard. The locked door. The dismissive way Sandrine waved her off. I asked if she was still willing to testify. She didn't hesitate. Someone has to stand up to people like that. Might as well be me. Then came the final piece. Lane forwarded me an internal memo from the mayor's office. An anonymous tip had sparked an audit of the Halworth Foundation. Early signs showed questionable bookkeeping, irregular employee payments, and large cash withdrawals without receipts. Sandrine's world was collapsing, one careful lie at a time. Cora stood in the doorway to my home office that night. "You're building a case," she said softly. "Not just for court. For something bigger." I nodded. "I'm building a mirror. And I'm going to make her look in it until she cracks." Cora didn't smile, but she didn't look afraid anymore either. That was enough for me. Next up, the courtroom. Let her sue me. She had no idea what I was bringing with me. The courtroom smelled like old paper and dust. Stale air mixed with cheap cologne and the tension of people who'd rather be anywhere else. Sandrine sat at the plaintiff's table in a pale blue suit, her posture stiff, jaw clenched. Silas was behind her, one row back, staring straight ahead like he was trying not to be seen. Cora and I walked in together. She wore a simple black dress. No makeup, no jewelry, just truth. And the truth didn't need dressing up. Our lawyer was Lane's cousin, Charlie, a quiet man with the demeanor of a tired history teacher and the instincts of a wolf. He didn't posture. He didn't perform. But he asked the kind of questions that made people sweat. First came the zoning violations. Charlie produced the original permit for the shed filed under a misleading category. He had the zoning officer on the stand within 15 minutes. Yes, the structure was misrepresented, the man said, adjusting his tie. It was never intended for residential use. Certainly not for months in extreme temperatures. Then came the HVAC testimony. Trey Hudson walked up, binder in hand, and told the courtroom exactly what he told me. The refusal, the ignored warnings, the handwritten notes from Sandrine herself. "Would you live in that shed, Mr. Hudson?" Charlie asked. Trey paused. Not for 5 minutes, let alone 90 days. The jury listened closely. Then came Donna Briggs. She was nervous, but solid. Voice clear. Memory sharp. "I saw her faint," Donna said, looking directly at Sandrine. I asked if she was okay. Sandrine said she was fine. Said it was heat. That sheet had water. Donna swallowed hard. But she hadn't had water. She'd had neglect. That's what I saw. Neglect, plain as day. Then came Cora. She walked to the stand with her head high. Charlie kept the questions gentle. Let her tell it in her words. "The first week I cried every night," she said. "By the second week, I stopped crying. By the third, I stopped speaking." A long pause. "I thought silence would protect my husband's future, but it didn't protect me." Charlie handed her a photo of the shed. "Is this the place where you slept?" Cora nodded. "Describe the temperature." "Sometimes 104, sometimes higher. The fan moved hot air around, but it didn't cool it. I lost 10 pounds in those 3 months. Couldn't eat. Couldn't rest." She looked toward Sandrine. "I don't want revenge. I just want to stop pretending people like her are untouchable." The courtroom was silent. Then Sandrine took the stand. She lied, of course. She spoke of misunderstandings and miscommunications. Claimed Cora chose to live in a shed for privacy. Charlie let her talk. Let her hang herself with her own rope. Then he asked, "Did you ever check the temperature inside the structure?" Sandrine faltered. I don't recall." "Did you ever enter it?" "I believe so. Briefly." Charlie pulled out a photo. The thermometer. The moldy water bottle. "Is this adequate shelter, Mrs. Halworth?" She didn't answer. Charlie waited. Then he asked the question I knew was coming. "Do you believe a woman who marries into a family is less deserving of comfort than one born into it?" Objection. Overruled. Sandrine's lips parted, but no words came. "That's all," Charlie said. We rested our case. The jury returned the next day. Verdict in our favor. Defamation claim denied. Counterclaim awarded. Sandrine Halworth owed us $1 in symbolic damages and full payment of all legal fees. The number wasn't the point. The point was this: we'd won. In full view. No secrets. No shadows. A month later, the Halworth Foundation was dissolved. The audit findings were made public. Misappropriated funds. Phantom employees. False reports. Silas quietly sold off 3 properties. Sandrine withdrew from public life entirely. Lane said the DA was still reviewing charges. But I didn't care anymore. They were done. That morning, Cora stood on the porch of our home, sun on her face, coffee in her hands. "You did it," she said. "No," I replied. "We did." She smiled. "A real one." "Now what?" she asked. I looked across the street at the newly built outreach center. A plaque by the door read, "Monroe Shelter for Women Built from Truth. Open to all." "Now we help someone else," I said. And that right there was the end of it. Not revenge. Redemption.